Warning, this podcast contains spoilers. Warning, this podcast contains spoilers.
Let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
Hello. This is Adolf. I have with me Jake
Hello.
and Krista.
Hello.
And today we're doing the Summer Overview podcast. So it's now September 8th, 2019, and summer is still technically here, but, unofficially summer is over. And we're just going to go over the movies that came out this summer and, what our actual thoughts are now that we have a little bit of space in between them, So let's start things off with the unofficial start of summer, which was Avengers Endgame. Now, Krista has not seen this, so we won't go into too much into this. But Jake, do you still love Endgame?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pissed at Sony, but that doesn't affect my love of the movie. I'm just now. It's like we lost Iron Man to bring back a character that Marvel can't use anymore.
So, I still love Endgame. It just came out on Blu-ray. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think my copy's coming across the ocean, so I should get it any day now.
Yeah, I really feel like even though it's 3 hours long, like I'm totally fine watching it again and again, and it's just it works. It's one of those movies that I want to watch it over and over again. I was the one that was like not exactly perfect, and it's still not exactly perfect, but I still love it.
Oh, it's not perfect, but it's perfect for me.
So let's go into May. So May, the first 3D movie was Detective Pikachu. Now, did we all watch this?
I did.
No.
So Jake, what do you think of Detective Pikachu? What you did see of it?
Yeah, well, it was okay. Not great. It'll probably, after merch, home video, streaming and television rights, it'll probably break even.
Now we got some numbers, right, Jake?
Uh-huh.
So how much did it cost to make Detective Pikachu?
150 million.
And then you want to throw another 100, give or take, for marketing, maybe 150. So about 300, give or take.
Yeah, so a movie really needs to make 3 times its budget to make everybody whole who worked on it. Because the studios get a lot less of the foreign gross than they do of the domestic.
And domestic gross is about 145 or so million, and the foreign gross is about 287 million. So worldwide, it's made about 430 million.
Yeah. So that's a little short of 3 times, but they're also going to sell streaming rights. They had merch, so I think it's close enough to 3 times that with the other gravy, it'll get by the skin of its teeth.
And the Pokemon franchise has been around for over 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not going anywhere. And I think they're already planning for a sequel or for a mainline Pokemon game movie.
Yeah, I figure we will see a Pokemon movie. I don't know if we'll see a sequel to this.
I liked it. I gave it a 6, and I just kind of, felt like it was hard to detach Ryan Reynolds from Deadpool, and it was just kind of, I don't know. A lot of the jokes were really, really into Pokemon fans, and it just was kind of weird to me. Jake, what'd you think of it?
I thought it was fine. I kind of thought it was like a Fisher Price Blade Runner.
I think the Pokemon looking different really threw me off. Like Pikachu is so gorgeous, but like so many other Pokemon look really weird out of place and don't look like they belong in the universe. Like Pikachu is totally fine, and I probably think they should have just done half the amount of Pokemon. Done a Thanos snap and cut them in half, and the half that were there are much better rendered instead of having so many Pokemon that are just kind of iffy.
Yeah.
That's what brought me out of the movie. I think was just so many iffy looking Pokemon. They're just like that doesn't look like it could exist. Even in this world, it doesn't make sense. Like Pikachu looks like a cat. That makes sense. But other things, it's like, I don't know what the hell that's supposed to look like. It doesn't really work. But it's fine. So, yeah, Detective Pikachu is definitely going to continue on. So let's move on to Aladdin. Everyone watch this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, Krista, you reviewed Aladdin. How do you feel about it a few months later?
I think it's still one of the better movies of the summer, honestly. But I don't know if it's gonna have like a lasting impression. I think still people are gonna remember the animated movie more fondly than the live action movie. But I still felt like the live action movie was good.
Yeah. So Jake actually recorded a Patreon-only podcast review of Aladdin. So for everyone else, Jake, what are your thoughts of Aladdin?
I actually like this more than the original. But
I can see that.
By saying that, though, I'm kind of damning it with faint praise because I don't like the original at all. And I'm the first to admit part of it I'm colored because my opinion of it is colored by growing up in the Middle East.
Oh.
Yeah. There's the original is a wee bit racist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's on a scale of 1 to 10 of racism. It's a 1. So I don't think it's worth getting up in arms about. It ain't Song of the South. I don't think it's worth getting up in arms about and banning or any of that nonsense.
Well, I mean, they cut out the most racist line because of how.
And they gave the princess a makeover. She didn't need to be rescued every 5 seconds, and they gave her a personality. And I thought Will Smith delivered. I really think it was a little too soon after Robin Williams' passing to do it, but obviously the world disagreed because this movie made over $1 billion.
So let's get to the numbers. Production was $183 million, and probably another 150 for marketing. So gross was $1,035,000, give or take $1 million or so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, about half of that is from foreign. So domestically, it made about 350, and foreign it made 680. So that's almost double. So foreign people outside the U.S. Specifically was the main people that wanted to watch this. So
well, it does seem to have like more Bollywood influences than most American-made movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It had great musical numbers. And like I said, when Will Smith was being Will Smith and not trying to channel Robin Williams, he's shown in this. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be a sequel to this.
Actually, I did hear that they're thinking about it. They're thinking about doing the direct-to-DVD movies, kind of combining some elements of those. So that's actually a really good idea. They don't want to like specifically say, yeah, we're going to make Return of Jafar or the one with Aladdin's dad into a movie, but we want to take elements of both of them, or a little bit of the show, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
I just have to go with Genie. I mean, the leads in this were, they were not as bad as the leads of John Carter, but they had about as much chemistry.
Well, I mean, so what's interesting about this is because it's like rooted in the tales of Scheherazade, there's a lot you could go with this world that doesn't even necessarily root directly into the tale of Aladdin or into the
Mm-hmm.
movies that are already made. There's a lot of stories you could still cast the genie as a tertiary character in many other Scheherazade tales.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, yeah, Will Smith was the star of this. I mean, they should have called this movie Genie.
So yeah, I think definitely making a billion is guaranteed that more Disney remakes are coming. We're gonna get to another Disney remake and sequels later, but it's definitely guaranteed that hey, they made a billion off of this. They're pretty happy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things is like, even though we complain so much about how Hollywood is bloated with remakes and sequels and, no new content, in the end, it works for them. It makes them money.
Yeah. Yeah. Hollywood's always remade stuff. And every once in a while, they knock it out of the park with the remake.
Now Aladdin actually had pretty good 3D. I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's keep going here. Next up is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Krista, did you watch this or no?
No.
I liked it. I liked it enough. Jake, what are your thoughts on Godzilla after a few months?
I still liked it. I still think the family plot was unnecessary, and they should have ditched it.
Yeah, it's basically what you wanted in the first Godzilla, a ton of action, and
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of a weird thing where total gross is about 385 million, 100 in domestic, 275 foreign, and production was 170 plus give or take 150 or 100 for marketing. So 385 is nothing for this movie. It really should have made so much more.
Yeah, it will probably scrape by like Detective Pikachu for Warner Brothers in profitability from streaming and other rights and merch. But this should have been a $1 billion movie.
And if they weren't already making the Kong versus Godzilla, I think it would have killed the franchise. This box office being so low.
Oh, yeah. I'm so frustrated because when Toho made this deal, they had just released Shin Godzilla, which was a complete reimagination of a restart of the franchise, and it was the best, one of the absolute best Godzilla movies released in my lifetime. It was mesmerizing and it was just awesome. It was so out of left field, and then Toho makes a deal with Warner Brothers. I was like going, if you're going to make a deal with an American studio, why didn't you make the deal with Sony, who owns Columbia? If there's any American studio that's going to understand a Japanese property, it will be Sony. Same goes with Pokemon. Why are they going to Warner Brothers, who has shown a record of traditionally not understanding Japanese properties or Hong Kong properties? And I think the box office shows that.
The one thing I kind of remember about Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is that the villain was like totally against humanity, and I was like, you know what? I actually kind of think he makes some points.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Charles Dance was great. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019, because I know there's other Godzilla movies called King of the Monsters. So I'm gonna so the kaiju don't at me over that. You can at me about other stuff, but hey, I know there's more than one Godzilla movie called King of the Monsters.
Now, one thing about this, Jake, I think you probably agree with me. why did they have to make this movie so damn ugly?
Yeah, I'm like tired of if you're gonna spend all this money on special effects, light it well. You don't have to be bright. Just look at what the Russo's brothers did with the last two Avengers movies. How they had things dark but yet lit in a way that you could see enough. Because I know you have it dark to cover up effects because nothing looks perfect. You could light it so you can tell what in the hell is going on.
It's just ridiculous. So many scenes are like raining or dark, or it's just like really ugly color palettes. And it's like, why can't this look beautiful? Why does and then like they purposely made a lot of the creatures to be like the entire size of the screen. So it's just like, yes, I get the scale, but it's just like it's a little excessive to have like the entire frame be monster, you know?
Yeah, some of this looked like it looked like an episode of X-Files the way it was shot. I want to talk about a show that looked like it was shot on a GoPro at night.
All right, so let's keep going here. The next movie is an animated movie from Universal, The Secret Life of Pets 2. Jay, you reviewed it. Krista, did you watch this?
No.
Okay, I actually watched this last week. Jake, since you reviewed it, what'd you think of Secret Life of Pets 2?
Not much.
Yeah, not much. It's okay. It's completely okay.
Yeah, it's mediocre in about every way, and it's very profitable. So I'm sure I'm gonna get stuck reviewing the third one.
So I rented this on Redbox on a Blu-ray, and it looks beautiful. It's a very beautiful, colorful animated movie. It just the one thing that really got me was like how detailed the dogs' noses are. They seem to have a lot of close-ups. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, the art's gorgeous. A lot of these computer animated 3D movies are absolutely breathtaking, and they have good character designs. So a toonhead, is going to get a lot more out of this than just a pet lover or a film buff.
So I like that a lot of the movies shot in like a dog or a pet's lower perspective. So the three story element, I feel like it wasn't needed. Like they could have just done one good story instead of three mediocre stories and put them together.
Yeah.
Now let's get the numbers here. Came out on June 7th. Budget 80 million plus 100 in marketing, give or take. Domestic was 156. Foreign was 222. So grand total about 378, which ain't bad. It ain't bad, but I think Universal wanted a whole lot more out of this.
Yeah, but that's they did it cheap enough. That's everybody's going to be whole from this. Plus all the merch, product tie-ins, streaming rights. Yeah, we're going to see a third one.
And you gave it a 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The only reason it got that high is because I liked Harrison Ford as Rooster.
Yeah.
It got a point for that.
It's okay. It's not terrible by any means. It's totally, you rent it from Redbox and you forget about it a week later or a couple of days later, and it's not terrible while you watch it. It's just mediocre.
Yeah. If you use this to babysit your kids, they're not gonna resent you in 10 years.
All right, so the next movie is Dark Phoenix, the last quote unquote X-Men movie from Fox. We'll see how the New Mutants is in legal hell. So God knows if that's ever production hell too. It's ever gonna release.
Yeah.
So Dark Phoenix, everyone seems to hate this movie, but me and you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've been mocked, humiliated, and attempted to shame. But hey, I'm shameless. I like this movie. Bite me.
I like it too. I don't get why everyone hated it. My wife liked it too.
But y'all were hating on it before it came out.
True. We were.
Yeah, yeah, we were expecting it to be complete junk, and so maybe our expectations were so low. But hey, I expected Into the Spider-Verse to be terrible. I'm surprised my teeth didn't break from my jaw dropping to the ground when I was seeing a perfect 10 on the screen. Dark Phoenix did not rise to that level, though. But it was still an enjoyable, worthwhile time.
Yeah. And, I like this crew. I like that final scene on the train. I thought that was fun. And I liked, Fassbender as always.
Yeah, and Sophie Turner was great. I mean, this had a lot going for it. I just thought there was a lot more good than bad to this. I thought this was worlds better than Apocalypse.
Yeah, and I like how. Okay, I like it, but I also don't like it. Professor Xavier being really creepy. I like that it complicates this character, but it was really creepy and really weird how his behavior in the movie was over the top. But it was a good character. It made sense for the character. It was just creepy,
Yeah, but it also kind of it helped with Magneto's characterization too. We needed Magneto to not be so bad. So to me, it worked. But
Yeah.
like I said, I give this movie a 10. I gave it a 7.
Yeah, I gave it a 7 too, and I stand by it. It's not perfect. Definitely problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I think this is going to be one of these movies 20 years from now. The kids are going to look back at their parents and go, "What were you thinking, you idiots?" This is a good movie.
So we don't know exactly the production budget for it, but we know how much it made. It made 65, which is really bad in the U.S., and 186 foreign, which is still pretty bad.
It's like nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard rumors from this movie cost more than $250 million.
And it was in production hell for a couple years, so it probably is that high. That's part of the reason we don't have a full budget. So worldwide, it made 250, and a lot of different publications said that this is the stinker of the summer, that Disney's really pissed off that this movie did not make that much money. I kind of agree with Jake that it should have been released, in like November or December or January. It's not a summer movie,
Yeah,
It seems like the poster should be a poster for Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
They dumped this movie in the summer. They didn't call it X-Men. They marketed this even worse than John Carter. And they're stunned that they made no money. I'm like, oh, you protest too much. You dumped this as a tax write-off.
And they spoiled it in the
trailers. Yeah, you spoiled it. Everybody knew it was coming to an end, so it's like no stakes. This was a tax write-off because they have $4 billion movies that came out in the summer.
Now, Krista, it's funny that you mentioned Captain Marvel because this movie has a lot of similarities to Captain Marvel, and I think that ending was changed because of Captain Marvel came out. So there's some similarities here, and some of the aliens in Captain Marvel were probably supposed to be the same aliens in Dark Phoenix, but it's just kind of a weird thing where it has some similarities there. I think you would find it interesting watching it, Krista.
Okay. The thing I find just I can't follow X-Men at all. Like Avengers, I at least have some idea what's going on. X-Men, I have no clue. I watched an entire X-Men movie, and I couldn't tell you anything about what happened.
What was the last one you watched?
It was the one where Quicksilver was trying to tell Magneto he was his dad.
So that was Apocalypse. So that was a second. So you actually could watch Dark Phoenix and you would get what's going on, because it's the sequel to that one, and it's pretty self-contained actually.
I would watch First Class. I would skip the earlier ones. First Class is kind of like a reboot.
Mm-hmm.
And Vaughn did just such a great job. In fact, I've noticed this trend. I think Hollywood might want to stay away from big train scenes in movies because it seems like Dark Phoenix, Solo. It seems like audiences don't want to see action set pieces set on trains.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I still think that it's pretty self-contained. That you could watch this, and I think you'll understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So next up here is Men in Black International.
Ooh, almost a bit as big a bomb as Dark Phoenix turned out to be.
This is like such a disappointment to me. I wanted it to be good so badly, and it just failed to deliver so much. Like, it had all the ingredients to be a good movie, and it somehow still completely flopped.
Yeah, this is a classic example of an old fart producer who has rights to an old franchise and is swinging his dick around.
Yeah, no, like, because like what you told me about, like, you know, they had an immigration plot in it, and that like the producer like blocked it and made sure that didn't get into the final cut. Like,
yeah.
The reason this script is so horrible is because there were so many changes, so many people fighting about it. The script is what you need to make a good movie. Like, you had good leads, you had a good franchise, you had so much potential here, and you ruined it because you butchered the script. And like, if you butcher the script, at the end of the day, you cannot make a good movie if you don't have a solid script.
Yeah, Sony, you just slit your own throat and you just killed one of your most valued properties.
So let's get some numbers here. Production was about 110 million. The domestic gross 79 million.
Oh God!
Foreign gross 173 for a total of 252, which means it is a stinker with the box office.
Yeah. Even with merch and everything else, this will not turn a profit.
For those who are listening and maybe don't know, anything under 100 million for as big a movie as this, it didn't make a profit. It flopped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this movie needed to make at least 350 million to break even.
And didn't make, and the word of mouth is negative. I still like it. I like it. It has problems. I mean,
it was a passable movie, but it should have been so much better than passable.
Yeah, if they had did this right, they would have had another $1 billion movie with the leads, how beloved this franchise is. Instead, they just killed it.
Like, the reason this movie is passable to begin with is because it's Men in Black, and because Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth are just so good actors that they were able to save the piece of junk that they were given, but they weren't able to save it enough. You still needed at its core for it to be good, and it wasn't.
Yep.
And the sad thing is, this kind of gives fuel to a lot of the people that were against it, because they're like, oh, this is men and women in black, and oh, they have to have diversity, and those people that were hating the
Yeah.
movie because of that, and they have now fuel. See, it flopped. You should just have Will Smith and Tommy Lee forever, and it's just like, this was actually a good opportunity to reboot the franchise, and it's been a while since Men in Black 3, and it's sad that this.
I mean, it's definitely not Tessa Thompson's fault here. No one can say it's because Tessa Thompson is a bad actor. She's like one of the only good things about this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Chris Hemsworth, I mean, he almost single-handedly saved the Ghostbusters reboot, but he didn't. But he came damn close. Because that thing was wretched, too.
So, yeah, the Men in Black franchise is probably dead in the water for at least 10 more years. And if it does have anything, it may just be comic books. It may just be a game. It's probably not going to get another feature-length release anytime soon because it just is such a big flop. And I kind of think they're done,
Mm-hmm.
So it's sad. It's sad because it shouldn't have been as bad as it was. And it could have been a lot better. And it's sad.
I feel like if you had a different producer, this would have been a good movie. If you hadn't had,
yeah, if the old guard had nothing to do with it, but a lot of these contracts,
it's such a tragedy.
Yeah, these idiots. Yeah, because Warner Brothers had John Peters for years. Same deal. He was messing up movies left and right. And this is just another jackass like that who screwed this royally.
I just want to know what the original script was like, what this movie was supposed to be. Because
Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth have given a few interviews where they talked about it, and it's heartbreaking.
And also just like seeing how excited that Tessa Thompson was for this movie, and like people ruined it for her. I just she doesn't deserve this.
So yeah, a Sony failure here.
Yeah.
So let's go on to the next movie, Toy Story 4, which has made $1 billion worldwide. Came out on June 22nd. Domestic gross just $420 million, and foreign gross $579, give or take. We don't know the budget, but Disney is happy with $1 billion for Toy Story 4. I don't think they're going to do Toy Story 5. I don't think so.
I mean, I already said after Toy Story 3, I don't see a sequel, but like after Toy Story 4, I definitely don't see a sequel.
Yeah, but I see them trying to make a sequel, just use in name only.
I mean, they could easily do something with like different characters, but they can't do they can't do Woody or Buzz or any of the ones we've come to love. They could easily do something with the same concept, but it's not going to be as big.
Now,
yeah,
you mentioned that, Krista, that we didn't think Toy Story 4 was going to be made or why it should be made, and I love this movie.
Yeah, same.
So
I didn't love it, but I liked it. This is a good movie, and I love Duke Kaboom.
I mean, I still had problems with it. I don't think it's the best Toy Story movie, but
it's the weakest one of the bunch.
But of the summer, like our summer was such trash that this was the one that actually stood out as good. Also, my kitten, for some reason, I have like a 3-month-old kitten, and she always climbs into the trash can. She loves playing with trash, so I've just started calling her Forky.
So I listened to a podcast that reviewed this movie after we did our reviews, and they mentioned something quite interesting, that Forky is a metaphor for death because he keeps wanting going into the trash, and he understands his use is over. What do you guys think of that idea?
I mean, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I think, I mean, they also, like, they only really reference this as a joke, but at the end, when they're like, why am I alive? I don't know. Like, they reference this really existential question
Yeah.
as a joke.
Yeah. But yeah, I really think this blew me away, and it took a while to get to $1 billion. It definitely took a few months, but it got there,
Mhm.
and Disney's happy with
Yeah.
it. You know.
So I could see Forky movies, possibly.
Oh, yeah.
So let's keep going here. The next Sony / Marvel movie, Spider-Man: Far From Home. We both really enjoyed it, right, Jake? Krista, you watched this yet?
Yep.
No.
So budget was 160 million, domestic gross 373 million, foreign gross 726, and worldwide gross a little north of $1 billion, almost $1 billion and million, almost, give or take, how much you count it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, this is Sony's second billion-dollar movie. First being Skyfall. And I can't understand why why the Bond franchise was taken away from them.
so
That was mind-boggling.
So we both really enjoy this movie. It's a really fun um, continuation of the story, and sets up a good foundation for after Endgame. The thing is, this movie is gonna really be, I think, really, what's a good word, coveted, because this is the last Spider-Man movie from Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, the deal hasn't been made, and it looks like Sony and Marvel are giving up. So, yeah, that's sad.
Only, the only hope we've got is Endgame. This movie takes place, because this is post-Endgame, 5 years in the future. So we have a while for Sony to get its head out of its ass and come to their senses.
Yeah,
And a couple of box office failures to realize that they had a good thing and they just messed it up.
so yeah, that's a really good point, because 2 or 3 years down the line, you know, it's about every 2 years a Spider-Man movie came out, and it's okay if another one doesn't come out until 2022, 2023, 2024. You know, if there's going to be enough Marvel movies to come out that I definitely want to see the next entry in this Spider-Man, you know, home, quote unquote, universe, or, you know, series. And I think with time, and I think it eventually will get a sequel, and I think Sony and Marvel will figure out some kind of deal and at least give us a decent third movie. And, you know, we may see Spider-Man and Venom 2, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So next up is The Lion King. Jake, Krista, did you watch this?
No.
No.
So I'm the only one that watched it. Okay, so here's the budget. We don't know budget. Gross is 482 million. Foreign gross 863. Worldwide 1,346,000,000, give or take a couple million. Look, the CG is incredible. About 90% of the time, I actually had no problems with the CG and how the animals looked. I think the problem with this movie is that the original is so great, and you know, watching this on its own merit, I kind of feel like the main voice actors flop. And it's just kind of like Aladdin, where the main voice actors are just bland and don't have good chemistry, and it kills it. And Timon and Pumbaa are the only ones that really bring a lot of life to it. They do have some new stuff in here that makes sense, but you know, overall, it's still a good story. It's still very enjoyable, but It's one of those things that, on its own merits, it's good, it's fine. It's just not anywhere as good as the original.
I think part of the reason for the voice actor thing is because they weren't looking for voice actors. They were looking for big names, big stars that could bring in people.
Exactly. You're 100% right. Beyonce is an amazing artist. Amazing. She's one of the best of probably my life. Not going to take away her musical talent. But as an actress on, voice acting, she did bad. It didn't work. It's just like reading lines, and you need more than that.
This isn't even her first role as a voice actress. She was in Epic. Epic completely flopped.
Yeah. Sounds like she needs to go back to live acting because she was great in Austin Powers sequel.
So, this over $1 billion. Disney's very happy. Second remake this year to make over $1 billion. And Toy Story making over $1 billion. Disney is very, very happy with this year, except for Dark Phoenix. And except for Dumbo.
Mm-hmm.
Disney owns like 50% of all media. Disney can't fail.
I think they own more than 50%. Yeah. They pretty much sucked up the summer box office. Because if you look at these 3D movies, I'm sitting here going, 4 3D movies made over $1 billion. So don't tell me 3D is dead.
So let's keep going here. The next movie is August release. The Angry Birds movie 2. Which had a budget of $65 million and has a domestic gross of about $5 million.
Oh, well. Honestly, even though it's a good movie, I couldn't expect more than that because no one cares.
The current numbers on it are $38 million.
Yeah.
And the foreign is 66 for a worldwide total of 104.
Thank you for the correction, Jake.
Million. Okay, and it's a bomb.
It was a good movie, but no one asked for an Angry Birds movie. No one cares about Angry Birds. So I don't know what they expected.
Yeah.
If this movie had been the exact same plot, but different different characters, if it wasn't actually rooted in the Angry Birds franchise, and it was just completely new characters, I argue it would arguably have done better.
Yeah. This is on. This is why Sony. This is why it is so frustrating about Spider-Man and Sony.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had a good movie on their hands. And they couldn't. They're marketing worse than Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's some fun numbers that I got right now. So the Angry Birds, the original movie, opened at $38 million, and so far, the entire domestic gross is $38 million of the sequel. That's horrible.
You're kidding.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
So basically, they didn't make any money past the.
Yeah.
And you know what's really sad is that this was the movie besides Neza which had the most people in the audience when I went to see it.
I guess that was all the people that went to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a bunch of little kids. And little kids will drag their parents, but their parents aren't going to be like, hey, you know what you should see? The Angry Birds movie. At best, it's a joke that people tell each other. Even though I fully admit it was a good movie, it just doesn't matter on a cultural scale. No one cares.
Yeah. Does anybody have Angry Birds apps on their phones anymore?
Yeah. People, if it was Fortnite, maybe that would be a big movie.
Yeah, exactly. A Fortnite movie. Let's hope Sony's not doing that.
Is it just what is Sony's deal? Sony seems like it just like sucks up all the worst possible ideas and it like makes something passable out of them. Except like Spider-Verse is its own thing, but all its other movies are trash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And God knows what's going to happen with 21 Jump Street.
I like those movies.
I know, but Lord and Miller has this deal with Sony now. What in the hell are they going to be able to make?
Wasn't there like a rumor back in the day that the 21 Jump Street was going to be have a crossover with the Men in Black? That would have been fun.
Yeah, Lord and Miller were going to do it too, and it got squashed by the same jackass who messed up International. That's the story going around. Who knows? I'm just so over it. Sony needs to go back into the gaming business and sell Columbia to some other mobsters or something, so they can go back to being a real studio. Well, actually, Columbia never was a real studio.
So yeah, when the movie Angry Birds 2 opens in 4th and it's barely 4th, that's a bad sign. The sequel should be opening number 1, at least number 2 if it's really crowded. And it's made, it's made $100 million, but it should have made that the first weekend,
Yeah.
And yeah, it was technically, it's probably going to barely scratch the surface of a profit. But I kind of think this is probably the end of Angry Birds movies. If they'll have TV specials or something, but they won't have. I don't think they'll have another movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if there was this felt like more like a made-for-TV movie. This did not feel like a movie that needed a theatrical release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just like shaking. Yeah, Sony, we're just shaking our heads at you. You should just rename your studio Trainwreck.
So we got one more movie, which we were not expecting, but it came to us anyway. And what's that movie called, Krista?
Okay, this is called Neza. I am not sure if I'm pronouncing that right because it is a Chinese name. So I'm sorry to anyone who speaks Chinese. But I love this movie so much. This movie in China is super popular. It's like the highest grossing animated movie in China of all time. It made a huge impact on China. And then they released it in the US like a couple months later. They released it in the US just like the tail end of summer. And I got the chance to see it in 3D and it's just so gorgeous.
So yeah, it's a one hell of a way to end the summer with your movie there, Neza.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to have a huge reach in the US. I think it's going to be like a niche kind of interest. Like 3D buffs will go see it. And like people who are, there were a lot of Chinese Americans in the audience, like people who know about Chinese culture. I love this movie for sure. All the weeaboos probably. But, I don't think it's going to be that big in the US, but I think, in China, this broke the box office in China. Like every Chinese metric was like, Neza, like it beat Endgame in China. It beat like everything.
Yeah, you're right. It's a huge movie in China, and it did decently. I don't know the numbers because it just came out last week. I think it was right officially.
Yeah.
And the IMAX 3D release just came out, and then now it's the wide release, but wide like one theater in 40 miles wide.
And none of them are 3D. They pulled the 3D.
Why? It's so good in 3D. It is so good.
They Hobbs and shot us.
People don't I hate people. Okay, whatever. People don't understand. Like this is like the example of good 3D. You can't judge 3D based off of bad 3D. You have to judge 3D based off of the merits of good 3D. That's all I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm. So I am gonna wait for Hong Kong 3D Blu-ray instead of giving awarding a theater more money than that disc would cost, and not getting the 3D I want, and that this movie awesomely delivers. So I will patiently wait my disc release.
You did mention another movie, Hobbs and Shaw. So that was not originally in our list of 3D summer preview, but then it got added, but then it didn't. So can you recap that whole mess quickly?
They kicked. Universal basically kicked our teeth in with 3D yet again. I'm looking at you about the Revenge of the Creature Blu-ray that you only put out in 720. Where's my replacement disc? I've been waiting for months. Basically, they just put out ads promoting Hobbs and Shaw in 3D with no announcements, and then without saying anything, didn't have the prints offered in the US and most other markets. Only a few markets like Manila. I don't know what's going on, and I'm very angry about it. I'm almost as mad at Universal as I am at Sony.
I just hate like all the politics of like executives and like all the politics that like people who don't understand 3D get to make decisions about 3D movies when they clearly don't have any idea what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this movie looked like it was shot to take 3D into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Well, like at the end of the day, like 3D, I just feel so sad for the state of 3D because if any reason, the reason 3D is quote unquote dying is because executives have their heads up their asses, and because it's just very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. And it also doesn't help that theaters, you would think with what tickets cost that movie theaters would give a damn about their presentation. And most of them don't.
So getting back to Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, the budget was about $200 million plus advertising, and it's made $700 million worldwide, 164 domestic, 555 million foreign, and Fast and Furious franchise keeps on doing hits, and this was a big hit.
Yeah, it's chugging away. It will eventually be profitable, probably, but it's and I think if they'd released this in 3D, it would already be in profit.
So, Jake, you watched the Hobbs and Shaw. How would you think of it?
It was a lot of fun. I haven't seen any of the other Fast and Furious movies and have no interest in them, but this was basically a cartoon superhero movie without superheroes. It was a lot of fun. I recommend it even without the 3D, but just don't pay a whole lot for this muffler, because I'm just hoping this gets a 3D release. I liked it enough. If this got a 3D release anywhere in the world, I'd pick it up.
So, what was your favorite movie, the best movie of the summer of 2019, 3D wise and movie wise, Jake?
3D wise, I would say Endgame.
Okay.
Movie wise, it's a tie between James Jarmus's The Dead Don't Die and Ari Aster's Midsummer.
Okay. From the 3D movies that we listed, we talked about, which of those 3D movies you like the most?
Spider-Man Far From Home.
Okay, what's your biggest surprise this summer?
Hobbs and Shaw, and not a good one, I might add. Getting 3D and then having it pulled away from me. I was not expecting that.
So, Krista, what's your favorite movie this summer?
Neza, like all the way. I loved it.
What's your biggest surprise this summer?
Biggest surprise was how horrible Men in Black was.
Okay. What 2D movie do you think you really enjoyed?
I've just been seeing all the 3D movies, honestly.
All right. So for me, my movie of the summer is Toy Story 4. I was blown away by it. I love it. I think the biggest surprise has to be the Spider-Man controversy. I did not see that coming, and it's just sad. It's just. I was gonna say Dark Phoenix, but I kind of saw that coming with people thinking it was gonna fail. But I was never expecting Spider-Man from leaving the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all that drama. So that's a big surprise. For 2D movies, oh man, I don't even know anything I've really watched that I really loved. So
The only 2D movie I've seen recently was a made-for-TV movie, the Steven Universe movie.
okay. Anything else you want to mention about the summer overall, 2019?
Man, people need to be going to the theaters. Like, no one is going to movie theaters. Like, opening weekends of big movies that have been marketed a lot have like 5 people in the opening matinee. What the hell?
Yeah, go see Ready or Not. It's good. I give it a 9 out of 10.
So 2D movie wise, I mean, the only movie that I did see that wasn't 3D was The Farewell, which is like a interesting movie about a family and one of the family members having cancer, and they don't want to tell her she has cancer because it's part of a Chinese culture not to. It's a good movie.
Yeah, based on a true lie.
Yeah. I watched it with some coworkers, and it was good for what it was. I enjoyed it. I mean,
yeah, Aquafina was great in that.
Yeah. I wouldn't go to the theater to see it, but I did enjoy it when I watched it. So that's something.
At the front of Neza, there was a bunch of Chinese trailers that I had never heard of any of these movies before, but it was interesting to see trailers in Chinese.
So yeah, it was actually kind of funny. Like 2 weeks ago, I was thinking about seeing the movie just for the heck of it, and I couldn't decide. I probably should have gone to see Ready or Not. That looks pretty fun. And Jake, you really like it, right?
It's awesome. Go see it.
So, yeah. But I guess that's gonna be it for the summer overall overview. It's an interesting summer. Never would have guessed Godzilla be a disappointment, and yeah, it's so many. If it wasn't Disney, it didn't make much money, and it's sad.
Yeah, this is what happens when you let a studio get a monopoly.
Like, I was really wanting to see It Chapter 2, but when it's 3 hours long, I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. All right, I guess that's it for us. All right, before this podcast ends, I want to give a thank you to my patrons. Right now, we have one patron, which is David from Spain, and I want to thank you for your financial support. All right, so that's going to be it for this podcast.
We now have a Patreon, and the link is in the description. Thanks for watching.
And we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, little bit everywhere. Just look for us, 3D or 2D. And of course, review us on iTunes. And if you want to write us a letter, our email address is email3d or2d@gmail.com. So that's going to be it. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.